Let me tell you about the day I turned 54 and decided I was officially done playing nice with men who think it's still 1955. This isn't just about an HVAC unit, though that's where it started. This is about every single time I've been patted on the head and told to get my husband, every time I've been talked over in a meeting, every time someone assumed the man standing next to me must be the decision maker. I'm done. Completely, utterly, magnificently done. It started innocently enough, the way these things always do. Our home has 2 HVAC units, both original to when we bought the place 8 years ago, and both decided to start their death rattles within weeks of each other. Of course they did. Because when it rains, it pours, and when one major appliance goes, they all form a suicide pact. The downstairs unit had been making this grinding noise that sounded like a garbage disposal trying to eat a fork, and the upstairs one just gave up entirely during the first real heatwave of the summer. Nothing says fun like waking up at 3 in the morning soaked in sweat because the air conditioning decided to retire without giving notice. So I did what any reasonable homeowner does. I called the HVAC company we'd been using for the past 5 years. They'd done good work before, always showed up on time, never tried to upsell us on things we didn't need. I'd had their technician, let's call him Gary, out to the house at least 4 times over the years for various maintenance issues. Gary was probably in his late 50s, had that weathered look of someone who'd spent their entire life crawling around in attics and dealing with ductwork. We'd chatted plenty of times. He knew I worked from home. He'd seen me handle contractor meetings, make decisions about repairs, write checks without consulting anyone. When I called to set up the consultation for replacing both units, Gary answered. I explained the situation, both units needed replacement, we wanted to discuss our options, get a quote, maybe look at some energy-efficient models. Pretty straightforward stuff. I suggested Thursday afternoon, when I had a gap in my work schedule. That's when things got weird. Well, we'll need your husband there for this meeting, Gary said, his tone casual, like he was stating an obvious fact. I paused, my fingers hovering over my keyboard where I'd been typing an email. I'm sorry, what? Your husband. He should be there when we go over the options. This is a big decision, pretty expensive. Both units, we're probably talking $15,000 to $20,000. I felt that familiar prickle at the back of my neck, the one I've learned to recognize over 54 years of being a woman in the world. Gary, I'm perfectly capable of understanding HVAC systems and making financial decisions. I've been handling these things for years. Oh, I know, he said quickly, but there was something condescending in his voice, like he was humoring me. It's just that this is a big investment, and I want to make sure your husband is in the loop. You know how it is, you'll explain it to him, but things get lost in translation. Better if he hears it directly from me. Things get lost in translation. As if I were some kind of defective telephone game, incapable of accurately relaying information from one adult human to another adult human. I took a deep breath, counted to 5. Be patient, I told myself. Maybe he doesn't realize how this sounds. Gary, my husband works a demanding job with a schedule that makes it very difficult for him to take time off during the day. I work from home. I'm available. I'm also the one who handles all our home repairs and maintenance decisions. I've owned 4 houses in my lifetime. My husband has owned 2. I think I can manage this conversation. I really think he should be there, Gary insisted. I mean, it's his house too, right? He's going to want to know what he's paying for. There it was. His house. Never mind that my name is on the deed. Never mind that I make the mortgage payments from my own checking account. Never mind that I'm the one who notices when things break, researches contractors, gets quotes, manages repairs, and keeps this entire household running. But sure, it's his house, and I'm just the little woman who lives here and occasionally dusts the furniture. Here's what Gary didn't know about my husband, and what I tried to explain but Gary clearly wasn't interested in hearing. My husband is brilliant at his job. He's wonderful with our kids. He's kind, funny, and supportive. He's also the first person to admit that he is completely, utterly useless when it comes to home repairs and major household decisions. It's not his fault, it's just not where his brain naturally goes. When something breaks, his immediate response is panic. Full catastrophic thinking. The AC dies and suddenly we're going to lose the house, we'll be bankrupt, we'll end up living in a van down by the river. Meanwhile, I'm the one who calmly researches options, gets multiple quotes, makes spreadsheets comparing costs and features, and presents him with a clear recommendation. He looks at whatever I've decided, trusts my judgment completely, and says, "Sounds good, honey." This system has worked perfectly for our entire marriage. He handles what he's good at, I handle what I'm good at, and we're both happier for it. But Gary didn't want to hear any of that. Gary had his script, and his script said that men make the big financial decisions and women just, what? Stand there and look pretty. Take notes. Nod supportingly while the menfolk talk about important things like BTUs and SEER ratings. I tried one more time. Gary, I appreciate your concern, but I'm telling you that I'm the person who makes these decisions in our household. My husband fully trusts me to handle this. He doesn't need to be at the meeting. Look, Mrs. Johnson, that's not my real name, but you get the idea. I've been doing this a long time. I know how these things go. I present options to the wife, she tells the husband, something gets mixed up, and then later the husband calls me back saying his wife didn't understand something correctly. It's just easier if he's there from the beginning. Can he take off work for an hour? I'm sure his boss would understand. Some thing in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quiet, actually. Like a rubber band that's been stretched too many times, finally just giving up. I'd been dealing with this my entire adult life. I'd been patient. I'd been understanding. I'd made excuses for men like Gary, telling myself they didn't mean it that way, they were just from a different generation, they didn't realize how they sounded. But you know what? I'm about to be 54 years old. I've earned every single one of these gray hairs and wrinkles. And I have exactly 0 fucks left to give for this nonsense. Gary, I said, my voice perfectly calm, perfectly pleasant, never mind. We won't be needing your services after all. Thank you for your time. Wait, what? Mrs. Johnson, I didn't mean. I'm sure you didn't. Have a good day. I hung up. Then I sat there for a moment, staring at my computer screen, feeling that cocktail of anger and satisfaction that comes from finally standing up for yourself. Part of me felt guilty. Had I overreacted? Should I have tried to explain more? But then I thought about it. I had explained. Multiple times. I'd been clear about my qualifications, my experience, my role in our household. Gary just didn't want to hear it because it didn't fit his worldview where women defer to men on important matters. My birthday was 2 days away. Friday. 54 years of putting up with this crap, and suddenly I just couldn't do it anymore. It felt liberating, actually. Like cleaning out a closet full of clothes that don't fit anymore. These old patterns of behavior, these outdated expectations, I didn't have to wear them anymore. I could just let them go. I opened a new browser tab and searched for HVAC companies in our area. The second company I called, let's call them Arctic Air Solutions, answered on the third ring. I explained our situation, 2 units needed replacement, wanted to discuss options and get a quote. Absolutely, the woman on the phone said cheerfully. When works best for you? Thursday afternoon? Perfect. I'll send Mike out around 2. He'll go over all your options, answer any questions, and get you a detailed quote. Usually takes about an hour. That W. As it. No interrogation about who else would be there. No assumption that I couldn't understand or decide on my own. Just straightforward business. I almost wanted to cry from relief. Is this really all it took? Just finding someone who treated me like a competent adult. Thursday afternoon rolled around, and Mike from Arctic Air showed up right on time. He was younger than Gary, maybe early 40s, and he shook my hand firmly when I opened the door. Not that limp, dismissive handshake some men give women, but a real handshake that said he saw me as an equal. Thanks for calling us, he said. Let's take a look at what you're working with. For the next hour, Mike explained everything in clear, understandable terms without being condescending. He didn't talk down to me or oversimplify things. When I asked technical questions about SEER ratings and energy efficiency, he answered them directly and seemed pleased that I was engaged and informed. He showed me 3 different options at different price points, explained the pros and cons of each, and let me know what he would recommend and why. Not once did he ask where my husband was. Not once did he suggest I needed to check with anyone before making a decision. He treated me like what I was, the homeowner, the decision maker, the person who had called him out to do a job. When he finished the presentation, I had all the information I needed. One of the options was clearly the best value for our situation: good energy efficiency, solid warranty, reasonable price point. The total came to just under $19,000 for both units, installed. "This one," I said, pointing to the middle option. "This is what we want. When can you start?" Mike smiled. "I can have a crew out here next Tuesday if that works for you." "Perfect." We shook hands again. He said his office would email me the contract and invoice. The whole interaction took maybe 90 minutes, start to finish, and it was completely painless. This is how business should work. This is how human interactions should work. With respect. With the assumption of competence. Without outdated gender roles getting in the way of simple transactions. After me. Ku left, I sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and thought about what had just happened. On the surface, it was a simple story. I needed HVAC work done, one company was sexist, so I took my business elsewhere. But it felt like more than that. It felt like a turning point, maybe not just for me but for a lot of women my age. See, here's the thing about being a woman in your 50s, you've accumulated decades of these small indignities. Each one alone seems minor, almost not worth making a fuss over. So you don't. You smile politely. You try to explain. You work twice as hard to prove yourself. You accommodate and adjust and make allowances for people who would never extend the same courtesy to you. And it builds up, year after year, layer upon layer, until one day you wake up and realize you're carrying around this enormous weight of all the times you bit your tongue, all the times you let something slide, all the times you prioritized being nice over being respected. And then, if you're lucky, you reach a point where you just stop. You put it all down. You walk away. Not with anger or bitterness, necessarily, but with a kind of calm clarity. This is the gift of middle age, especially for women. You finally understand that you don't owe anyone your patience with their prejudices. You don't have to educate every person who underestimates you. You can simply take your business, your time, your energy, and give it to people who treat you with basic respect. When my husband got home that evening, I told him the whole story. He was apologetic, as if he somehow bore responsibility for Gary's assumptions. "I'm sorry he put you through that," he said. "Did you find someone else?" I did. They're coming Tuesday to install new units. 19,000, installed, with a 10-year warranty. He gave me that look he always gives me, the one that says he's grateful and impressed and a little bit in, or that I handle all these things that would send him into an anxiety spiral. "You're amazing. Thank you for taking care of this." "It's what I do," I said. And I meant it. This is what I do. I manage our household. I make these decisions. I've been doing it successfully for decades. The only difference is that now, I'm no longer willing to work with people who can't see that or won't respect it. The crew from Arctic Air came the following Tuesday, just as promised. They were professional, efficient, and cleaned up thoroughly when they finished. Both units worked beautifully. The downstairs unit purred instead of grinding, and the upstairs one kept our bedroom so cool that we actually had to adjust the thermostat up a couple degrees. It was worth every penny of that $19,000. But here's the kicker: about a week later, Gary called me. I saw the company name on my caller ID and almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mrs. Johnson? This is Gary from. I know who you are, Gary. Right. Well, I was just calling to follow up. I wanted to see if you'd reconsidered about scheduling that consultation. We'd really like to earn your business." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not meanly, exactly, but with genuine amusement at the audacity. "Gary, I already had both units replaced. The work was done yesterday." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Oh. You went with another company." I did. Another pause. "May I ask why?" And here's where I could have been polite. I could have made up an excuse about pricing or availability. I could have protected his feelings and avoided confrontation. The old me, the me from even 2 weeks ago, probably would have done exactly that. But I was 54 years old now as of the previous Friday, actually, and I had made myself a birthday promise. No more protecting the feelings of people who don't respect me. You may, I said. I went with another company because they didn't require my husband to be present for a consultation. They treated me as a competent adult who could make decisions about my own home. They got a $19,000 contract because they saw me as a customer rather than a wife who needed her husband's permission to spend money. The silence this time was even longer. Mrs. Johnson, I didn't mean to imply. Gary, I'm sure you didn't. I'm sure you thought you were being helpful or thorough or whatever. But let me tell you something, and I hope you'll really hear this. Women my age have spent our entire lives being underestimated. We've been told we don't understand things, that we need to check with our husbands, that we're not qualified to make important decisions. And we're tired of it. Exhausted, actually. So when we encounter someone who treats us with respect right out of the gate, we remember it. And when we encounter someone who doesn't, we remember that too. You lost a very easy sale because you couldn't see past your assumptions about gender roles. I apologize, he said finally. You're right. I should have listened to you. Yes, I agreed simply. You should have. After I hung up, I felt something shift in my chest, like a weight I'd been carrying had finally loosened. It wasn't just about the HVAC units. It was about all of it every time I'd been dismissed, overlooked, or patronized. Every time I'd let it slide to keep the peace. Every time I'd made myself smaller to make someone else comfortable. I told this story to my daughter, who's 30, and she was both outraged on my behalf and proud of how I handled it. Mom, she said, I can't believe you had to deal with that. But I'm so glad you called him out. Then I told the story to my mother, who's in her 80s, and her reaction was different. She seemed almost wistful. I wish I'd done more of that when I was your age, she said. We were taught to just accept it, you know? That's how things were. You didn't make waves. And that's the thing, isn't it? The progress happens in these small moments, in these individual acts of refusing to accept what previous generations had no choice but to tolerate. My mother's generation fought for the right to have credit cards in their own names, to not be fired for getting pregnant, to be admitted to professional schools. My generation fought for equal pay, for sexual harassment to be taken seriously, for representation in leadership. And now we're fighting for something that should be so basic it's almost embarrassing we still have to be treated as competent adults in simple business transactions. The story spread, as these things do. I mentioned it to a friend, who told another friend, who posted it on social media. Suddenly I was getting messages from women all over the country with their own versions of the same story. The car dealership that only wanted to talk to their husbands. The financial advisor who kept directing questions to their male partners. The contractor who called their boyfriend boss while referring to them as the missus. The real estate agent who assumed the man in the couple must be the primary breadwinner. What struck me about all these stories was the consistency. These weren't isolated incidents or misunderstandings. This was a pattern, a systemic issue of women being seen as secondary decision-makers in their own lives. And what struck me even more was how many women were finally saying enough. There's something that happens when you hit your 50s as a woman. You've spent decades trying to be nice, trying to be accommodating, trying not to be difficult or emotional or any of the other labels that get thrown at women who stand up for themselves. But at a certain point, you realize that being nice hasn't actually gotten you treated better. It's just made it easier for people to take advantage of your patience. So you stop. Not in a dramatic, burn it all down kind of way, necessarily, but in a quiet, firm, this is who I am kind of way. You start saying no without over-explaining. You start walking away from situations that don't serve you. You start valuing your own time, expertise, and dignity as much as you've always valued everyone else's. For me, that moment came with Gary and the HVAC consultation. For other women, it's different situations. But the common thread is this: we're done pretending that disrespect is politeness. We're done doing the emotional labor of making sexist men comfortable with their own prejudices. We're done shrinking ourselves to fit into outdated expectations of what women should be. The company Gary works for probably lost out on tens of thousands of dollars in potential future business from me alone. 2 HVAC units now, but eventually a water heater, maybe a new furnace at our vacation property, referrals to friends and neighbors. All gone because one man couldn't see past his assumptions long enough to treat a female customer with basic respect. And here's what I want other women to know, especially women my age who might be reading this and nodding along because they've experienced the same thing: you don't owe anyone your patience with their sexism. You don't have to educate. You don't have to explain. You don't have to give second chances to people who didn't respect you the first time. You can simply take your business elsewhere. You have that power. Money talks, as they say. And women control enormous purchasing power in this country. We make or influence the vast majority of household buying decisions. We're the ones researching products, comparing options, managing contractors, and writing checks. And if companies want our business, they need to treat us with respect. It's really that simple. I'm 54 now. I've got hopefully another 30 or 40 years on this planet. I plan to spend them surrounded by people who see me as I actually am: competent, experienced, capable, and worthy of respect. Anyone who can't manage that basic level of human decency can go find another customer. I've got 0 fucks left to give for outdated nonsense, and let me tell you, it feels absolutely liberating. So thank you, Gary, in a weird way. Thank you for being so blatantly dismissive that you made the choice crystal clear for me. Thank you for reminding me that I don't have to tolerate being treated as less than. And thank you for costing your company $19,000, because maybe next time they'll think twice before assuming a woman can't make decisions about her own home. The Arctic air units are running beautifully, by the way. Cool air, no grinding sounds, perfect temperature control. Every time I adjust the thermostat, I smile a little, thinking about the choice I made. Not just the choice of which company to hire, but the bigger choice to stop accommodating people who don't respect me. That's what 54 feels like finally being done with other people's bullshit. And I've got to say, it's the best birthday present I could have given myself.